Righto, what's happening, guys? Welcome to the stable. I've been invited here by Jax. You would have seen his video before about his Supercoach team. Now it's my turn. My name is Tommy. I'm going to do my Supercoach team for 2026. And we're going to go through it, have a look. My team's a little bit different to Jax. I'm going to explain why I pick certain players and the best tips for you guys and what you're going to do for 2026. There's a lot of things you need to keep in mind, and there's structure that you need to sort of figure out for 2026. You have to remember what you're going to do. You have to have a plan. You need to stick with the plan, because if you go in there with a certain idea and it doesn't work early on, you can really sort of stuff yourself up. You can get in a little bit of a pickle. So we're going to go through it. I'll show you my team and I'll explain why I picked certain players, who to stay away from, in my opinion, and maybe some primos that you might not have thought about. But we'll go through it all. So let's jump in and we'll pick our team. So look, here we are on the Supercoach page. Now, there's always a thing with Supercoach. Like I said, you have to have an idea, an understanding of what you're going to do, the plan that you're going to do for 2026. Now, a lot of people I've seen so far on these Supercoach pages, they've made teams and they're trying to get that middle ground, that mediocre ground, I like to call it. That around about that 400,000, that 300,000. That's the middle ground you want to stay away from, in my opinion, personally. I think if you get too many of those 400 to 300,000 players, you can make it really hard for yourself. You could put yourself in a bit of a hole, because what happens is there's not much growth there for those players. You end up getting too many mediocre players that don't score you those high scores that you need to win rounds, and also they don't really jump that much. So let's go through it. I'm going to go through my defenders. We'll break it down, and I'll talk about some of the reasons why I've picked them, and maybe some other potential options that you might want to go for. But we'll go through it. So first off, number one, in my opinion, it just has to be Messiah, the Messiah. I mean, if you're not having him in your team, I can understand why. Look, he's very expensive, 622,000 off the rip. It's expensive. It is expensive. But I'm going to explain to you my theory on this. I pick more primos at the start than I do, let's say, that middle ground, like I was saying before, and I have less rookies in there. The reason being for this is because you have to think about the trades it's going to take you in order to get that player. So, for example, if you think that Wangani Millera is too expensive, how many trades is it going to take you in order to get him? Now, he might drop down to 500,000, potentially. I don't think he will. I think it's pretty unlikely. He's going to score pretty high most games because he's such a good footballer. He's going to be used in the middle, I've heard, but we'll see in the pracky matches what happens. But he's just consistent. He probably had one of the best purple patches of all the players last year. Obviously, Rao won the Brownlow. He was the best player, but I don't think there was a better player in terms of a patch than Wangani Millera. I don't think you're going to be led astray if you go for Messiah. Now, look, you could take him out, and if you're thinking, you know what, I prefer Sinclair. Yeah, that's a fair option. You look at the percentage here of the owned, and this is another thing you have to take into consideration with Supercoach, is the percentage of the owned players. Now, because the pods in your team is what ultimately is probably going to win you matches, and if you want to win the whole thing, you need to have more pods than players that are the same. So Sinclair is only at 4%. So not a lot of people have Sinclair. Now, that's staggering to me, because Sinclair is a proven points getter, 112 on the average. He's a really high gettable user. Uses it pretty well. He's always going to take those kickouts from the back. So having Sinclair is not a bad option. It saves you a little bit as well if you want to go for him. But in my opinion, I just can't go past Messiah. So he's my number one, but you wouldn't be astray using Sinclair. That would be a fine option. Number two, it's Lockie Whitfield for me. Lockie Whitfield never lets me down. He never lets me down. He is so reliable. Now, there is a discussion to be had with Lockie Whitfield. Is he going to be that mainstay down the back? Are they transferring that sort of this role to Ash? They did a little bit last year. They ran through Ash a little bit more. Obviously, he's younger, so they obviously have to give those reins off in the future at some point, right? But I think Lockie Whitfield is a phenomenal player. He's just so reliable. The guy very rarely has bad games. He drops a couple of stinkers every now and then, but the only time he drops a stinker, in my opinion, is when GWS don't use him right, when they move him up to half forward, or they have some really strange idea for that week that they want to do with Lockie Whitfield. But he is so reliable. I don't think you're going to have a problem. Like I said, if you want to have another option, you could use Lockie Ash. I don't want to go for Lockie Ash because he burnt me last year on a particular game to kick me out of the final. So I can't go Ash for that reason, but he's not a bad option. Number 3 for me, Connor Rozee. Now this is going to round out my primo. What I'm talking about with primos, right? This is my primo defense. The next 3 players in the defense here are low options, but I think, especially in Supercoach, what gets you lots of points is these halfbacks. These halfbacks are very high in the touches, very high in the kicks, and the meters gained. These are players that are going to get you consistent 100 plus points. Now, you need at least 3 of them. Obviously, in the future, as the season goes on, you want to have 4, 5 potentially. But as a starting basis point, having these 3, Rozee, Whitfield, and Wangani Miller, in my opinion, are probably the best you can get. Rozee 105, and he's going to play in that same role that he did last year, that sort of halfback role. They said that seems to be his role from now. The only problem is he's 59% in the owner's percentage, so near enough everybody's got him. So again, if you want to go for a pod that is very similar to Rozee, you could go Jordan Clark potentially. Rory Laird, surprisingly to me, has no one. Now, I don't think that's correct. I don't think nobody out there in the world has Rory Laird. I think someone's probably got Rory Laird. That's a good shout. He's a good user of the football. He's going to have a lot of touches, and he's a bit cheaper. So there is that option if you want to go for Laird. I go for Rozee, though. Port Adelaide start, and I do have a lot of other Port Adelaide players in this team, you'll see. I think Port Adelaide start is too good. And that first 5 rounds in particular, he should be scoring a fair few points. So having Rozee, I don't think is going to let you down. Oh, that's hot chocolate made at night time. I tell you, it's not bad. Get around it. Right, next one. This one is contentious. Now, this is where we start to get into the realm of what could be. So I'm going for Kitty Coleman. Now, Kitty Coleman, good price, $233,000. That's cheap as chips, considering what he can do. Now, this is where we're going to start watching the pracky matches. There's going to be a lot of players in here where we just have to see a few practice matches and maybe even that opening round to see where they're being positioned and what the team is going to do for them and what Chris Fagan in particular is going to do with Kitty Coleman. Brisbane are the most unique proposition because they have so many good players in so many areas, right? They're obviously, back-to-back premiers, potentially could go for a 3-peat. They have so much talent all around the ground. I actually sometimes don't like having Brisbane players because there's so many of them that it's hard for someone to really stand out. Now, McGluggage last year was that for Brisbane, but it doesn't mean to say that McGluggage this year is going to be that player. It could be Will Ashcroft, it could be Bailey, it could be Dunkley. Who knows? It could be someone. So Brisbane's really difficult. So you've got to keep your eye on Kitty Coleman, a few pracky matches maybe, and just see what that role is for him. Because if he is going to get that halfback role and maybe share those responsibilities with Zorko, then he's going to be a great player to have at $233,000. However, if he can't break into the team, which he didn't do at the end of last season, like a lot of the reason why he wasn't in the team, yes, he had injuries, but he wasn't exactly pushing it. You know what I mean? Like he could have broken into that team, but he just didn't have that final, I think, that effort to really get there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Kitty Coleman. But as of right now, things can change, obviously, but he's going to be there for me. Now, the next 2 are going to be dead as your rookie picks type thing. Now, one player that didn't play last year, but looks from all accounts like he's going to be great off that halfback, Mona's Wakefield for Melbourne. Now, $145,000. He looks like he's a shoe in to play halfback there for Melbourne Demons. So I would have him in there just at the price point, $145,000. If he makes if he makes 50,000. You're happy, you move them on. I think you got to have some rookies in here. You got to have rookies in your team that are going to play, or that you think are going to play, and especially for teams like Melbourne, who we don't think are going to be very good this year. Let's be honest. These are very good picks. Gibcus for Richmond. Heard so many good things about him. Everybody's talking for him to be, you know, a good up and coming defender for Richmond. And at 139,000, you'd be mad not to. Right. We're going to round out the bench for the defence before we move on to the midfield. So just for the bench, it's going to be, again, rookies. Lindsay from West Coast Eagles, again, has a halfback role. So he seems like a great option at 122,000. And then the next one is going to be Sarong. Now, apparently, from what you're hearing from the Sydney camp, is he's good enough to break into this team. Again, we have to see the pracky matches and everything like that. But at 119,000 on the bench, even if he plays half a season, he's gonna rise. But apparently he's got lots of upside, and with a name like Sarong, you probably do, right? So let's move on to the midfielders now. This is where it gets really contentious, because like I was saying before with the primos, I go for a different style. Now I've gone through this team. I've done about 2 or 3 versions of this team, and some versions have had them, some versions haven't. And again, this is, you have to outline what you want to do from the start. Are you going to have your primos and then with your rookies trying to make that money off them to get a couple more, or are you going to play maybe not with the high primos and then plan in advance how to get them? I'm going with getting them in straight away. That's my opinion. It means you have to give up somewhere, so you might be 1 or 2 players down in a certain area of the ground early, but I think having Marcus Bontempelli in your team off the rip, 20% owned, not everybody has him because he's 706,000. That is overpriced. Let's not get it twisted. He's not going to stay at 706,000. But you have to remember this with Marcus Bontempelli. 130 on the average. He played 18 games. The man was injured for what, the first 8? Or the first 6 games, sorry? Like, he's a proven points getter. He impacts the game in so many different ways. He can score goals, he gets touches, he gets tackles. Man can do the rock work if you want him to. He's everywhere. He's hard to tag because he can move around the ground, he can move forward, he's so big and strong. Not many players in the league can really lock down Marcus Bontempelli on a tag. So yes, 706,000 is astronomical, but I just think if you get him in early, he's not going to let you down. And it's just a position you don't have to worry about. It's then you don't have to think, crap, how do I get Bont into my side? And that's what happened to me last year. You know, towards the end of the season, halfway through the season, when he came back, we didn't have him, right? So then I had to figure out a way how to get Marcus Bontempelli into the team. And of course, you have to then trade 2 to 3, maybe even potentially 4 players to get Bont in, because you just have to have him. So I want to get him in straight away. It's just something I don't have to worry about. Now, in order to get Bontempelli, like I said, something has to drop. Now, I'm going to talk about what that is, and I'll explain the area where I'm going to drop, but it is also, it's the change of the ruling that will kind of explain that, and we will see how it goes. And obviously, if things change, then Bont has to be out. But for now, he's in, and I'll explain why later. Second, for me, Butters. So I'm going to have the top 2 midfielders in the league are going in my team straight off the rip. I don't have to worry then. I've got the 2 best midfielders in the competition, in my opinion. Zach Butters in the first 5 games is going to kill. He is going to kill. They've got one of the best schedules in terms of a midfielder, and a primo midfielder in Butters. He's not going to have any trouble. I think in the first 5 rounds, he's scoring 110 plus easy, in my opinion. I'll be very surprised if he doesn't. Because they got some very fortunate games. Port Adelaide. Again, if you think that 56% on the owns and you want to have a pod, McGluggage is there. And I can understand that. I can understand having McGluggage. There's only 4% of people. But is McGluggage going to get tagged this year? He might. Because he's now on the map. People know how good he is. I mean, everybody really should know how good McGluggage is anyway. But he might start to get a tag. That's just something that he hasn't had to deal with. And that's also a thing I like to take into consideration when I pick these midfielders, is players that haven't been tagged and they've had breakout years, because this was McGluggage's best year by far. And is he going to get a little bit more attention now, considering that probably Lachie Neale, let's say less about Lachie Neale, but Lachie Neale probably isn't going to get the tag anymore. Let's just say that, you know, he's probably dealing with something else. But Hugh McGluggage is probably going to get the most attention in that Brisbane midfield. So you can go him. I think he'll still do well, but he's going to have that, in my opinion, that Nick DAICOS sort of thing where He's going to get tagged, and can he break out of it? There might be some games where he doesn't, and that might piss you off early days. So next one for me, a little bit under the radar this one, but I'm going Bailey Smith. Bailey Smith, he's going into my side. Had such a great year last year. Realistically, didn't very rarely had a bad game, and again, very hard to tag. Because he kind of plays that he's that running, or kind of off the wing, but sort of drifts into the middle. Like, he's such a running player that no one really can get a hard tag on him. And even if you do, he still kind of can break out and get some touches. Only 5% of people have him. 638 is a little bit high, and he doesn't have that mid-forward, which is another thing this year that they're really clamping down on, if you've noticed, that a lot of these players don't have that dual role. And I think maybe because some of these scores that they had last year were so high, and because you could get forwards, you could have rucks in your forwards, and people were breaking the 3,000 point mark weekly, and I don't think Supercoach want that happening. So they've limited the dual player, and he's one of them. So he's not a forward, so he's strictly a mid. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. So I think having Bailey Smith will be fine if you can afford him. My next player in the middle of the ground, I've got to scroll down a little bit because now we have to save our money. Again, all these options in here, if you didn't want to go Bailey Smith, Nick DAICOS. Do you want to go DAICOS? I'm a massive Collingwood fan, as you can see. DAICOS gets tagged every single week. Some weeks he breaks them, and he'll get you 140. Some weeks he doesn't. That's just Nick. The problem with Nick is that he doesn't have somebody else in the midfield that can really help him out. Now, is Josh going to go into the middle this year? That's something to be seen. I don't know. Well, again, we'll have to wait for the practice matches to see what goes on. But Nick is very hard to have in your side because he will drop from 628,000. I guarantee it. He'll get close to 500 because there'll be a couple of weeks he gets tagged. So you can wait on Nick. Have him in your finals, but I don't think Nick is required straight up. Collingwood have some hard games. We actually have a hard fixture list. It's ridiculous. Every single year we seem to get shafted. But you can wait on Nick, in my opinion. So Noah Anderson's schedule, that's another option. Now, if you don't want to have Bailey Smith, you could go for Noah Anderson. If you wanted to drop and maybe save yourself 20k using another area, Noah Anderson's probably a good shout. Brayshaw's a good shout because Sarong tends to get tagged for Fremantle, and then Dawson. I'd say that's probably your options at the good primos. Dawson is probably the only Adelaide midfielder. And then Callahan, Richards, look, they're all good. Max Holmes doesn't have that defensive role, so I'm a little bit hesitant on him. So we're moving down. This is where we need to save a little bit of money. Goulden, I just think Goulden's brilliant. Like, you look at that average, 104, only played 10 games. So if he played 20, now his injury cloud, like, he does get injured a fair bit, so again, we'll just have to see what happens. But he's fit at the moment going into this new season, so I really love Goulden. He gets high touches. Heaney does get tagged from teams. Goulden doesn't, not as much. He does sometimes, but usually it's Heaney. So I stay away from Heaney a little bit, although he's only on the 2% owned and Goulden's on the 35%. So again, looking for that pod. Maybe Heaney is your man. Right, now we're going to start breaking it down because we've got 4 primos here. So we now have to get onto the players that are a little bit less, who I think will jump up to. So I'm going to bring up my team because obviously I've done it before. So I just need to check on this. That again, this is someone that everybody's kind of got, and it's Hayden Young. Now, Hayden Young, injury cloud. Do I need to say any more about the injury cloud with Hayden Young? If he stays on the ground, that price at 389,000 is a steal. Like, he will go up to 500 plus. He's so extremely talented. He's just ready to boom. But his injury crisis is something you need to factor in. Now, at that price, at 389,000, you could also go for Harley Reid. Harley Reid's 381. But the thing with Harley Reid, gives a lot of free kicks away. He's undisciplined, so his points in Supercoach are actually quite shit. He's not a bad player by any means, and I think he's going to go on that high trajectory of growth, but gives a lot of frees away. He's not good in the Supercoach just yet. Darcy Parish is another player you can have at that sort of price at 334. I'm surprised he's not injured yet. You know, he's a walking injury made to happen. So I'm going Hayden Young. I just think there's more in the tank there for Hayden Young as opposed to Parrish. Although, again, Parrish is a fine option. But I'm going to go for Young. I think he can break that injury cloud. But again, we need to see these practice matches because if he goes down with injury, he's going to be out. You know what I mean? And then we'll probably slide somebody else in there. But he's there for now. Next one for me, this one is a good pick. People may have cold feet about it, and you might have seen Jack's original post on his team. He did talk to me off air about this, about having Langford and getting cold feet, and going off him, and that's completely valid. Langford is not a player yet that would command having in your team. That he's going to be that namestay in your team. You can rely on him. He's not that player yet. But Melbourne have lost a lot of midfielders, and somebody has to step up. And I think that the option, this is his time to shine in the middle of the ground. There's no Oliver, there's no Petrarca. We know Pickett's probably going to go into that middle, but other than that, it's just Viney and Steele? Jack Steele, that's it. So Langford's got a real prime opportunity here to jump in and make this role his. Now, it might not. Maybe he's not as good as what we think he could be. But for $384,000, I just think I have to have him because he's going to play so many minutes. He's going to have that option in the middle of the ground with no more Oliver and no more Petrarca. So I think he's a smart person to have. But again, if you don't rate him, you get cold feet, then that's fair enough. Next, two players to be rounding it out. I'm going to go coming from Richmond. The Richmond, you're going to see a little bit of Richmond splash through my team because they have on paper some of the best young players. They really do, and they are going to play. So they're great options to have in your side because even if they play majority of the year and they're getting you 50, 60 points, nothing major, they're still going to grow. You know what I mean? They could grow 50,000, 60,000, and you move it on, and you get someone on the down. So these players from Richmond that are going to play, people tend to put these young players in at 119, 120,000, and they don't play. They don't kick a football. So you've got to think about the young players you're putting in. Are they playing? Are they on the team sheet? And Richmond have got these players. They've got these players. So if you can get these into your side, I don't think you're going to go wrong. And then the final one, near enough everybody's got him, Jagger Smith. I just think you'd be a fool not to have him, but everybody's got him. But he should increase from 119,000. That could be a steal. He looks like a good young player, up-and-coming player. Just needs to stay fit and healthy. Dyson Sharp's going to round out my bench. From all accounts, looks like he's going to walk straight into that as in the midfield. Brody from Port. Now, look, I'm not wowed on Brody. I think he's a little over. I think he's overrated. If I'm being honest, I don't think he's really going to be that much. But 119,000 again, sitting on your bench. If he increases 50, 60, 70k, if he gets over 200,000, you move him on. You get somebody else. But I'm not wowed by him. Let's put it that way. So next one is McRae, the old Collingwood player. I think that for West Coast, he is probably going to play games because why wouldn't you? You know, they need some talent all around the ground, and they have recruited fairly well. West Coast, they've picked up some players from good clubs that were fringe players that are just looking for that consistent footy. Like McRae is he's a good player. He just couldn't break into Collingwood. So again, at 119,000, you're not doing yourself any disservice having him in your side. Now, onto the ruckman. This is where the conversation needs to start, and this is where the big overall structure comes into my team. I have done this 3 times already, and I've had the primos. I've gone Jackson and Sherry, right? And to get Jackson and Sherry into your team, I would have to drop Bontempelli, and I think Wagner Miller, and I drop Bontempelli down to, let's say, maybe a DAICOS or a Heaney or someone like that, someone cheaper, and then I move Wagner Miller around, and I put maybe say a 400,000 player in there. Miles Bergman was in one of my teams before. He's going to be playing lots of midfield minutes for Port, so he's a good shout. The defense, I think I had him in there if I went for Jackson and Sherry. Now, just for this setup, this is probably not going to stay this way, but I'm putting Brian in there just for now. Just for this particular build. Why is he in there? The reason why he's in there is because if this ruckman rule, if this ruck has changed, this rule has changed by They're just not waiting for the ruckman and they're just throwing it in. And the ruckmen aren't getting to these contests quick enough. And they're not getting the hit-outs. They're not getting the tackles. They're not getting the clearances. We may see such a drop-off in the ruckmen, in their scores. They might go from 130, 140, what they were capable of getting, maybe down to 80 or 90. And that's a big drop-off for 600,000 plus. Now, last year, you really had to have your Sherry, your Gorns, your Grundys, your Jacksons. You had to have them because you were going to lose. Nobody knows what this new ruck rule is going to be like. No one knows. We're all just up in the air. So we really have to watch these practice matches. We have to see how it goes. I don't know how it's going to go. If it vastly changes the landscape of how the ruckmans get their points, then there's going to be no need to have primo ruckmans. If they drop down 50 points, you don't need to have them. Put them somewhere else. That's why Bontempelli's in my team straight up. So this really depends on how this rule is going to change the game. If it doesn't change the game, if the rucks get to these contests and there's one or two that the midfielders maybe are touching, and they're still getting 100 plus points, then we change this side back out. We take Bontempelli out, we take Nas out, and we have Jackson and Sherry. And then I'll probably put, like I said, another high midfielder in there, DAICOS, Dawson, whoever, and I'll probably put Bergman or Roberts or McKercher, someone in there that high 400, because you'd have to put Sherry in your team, right? So we're just waiting. So don't lose your marbles here, because I guarantee you people are looking at Brian and going, "You're mad. How can you have Brian in your side?" This is just the structure for now. But if it changes the game, because the reason why Jackson's still in there, and I'll explain why Jackson's still in there for that price point, is because Jackson is apparently going to be playing midfield for Fremantle. They are going with Darcy and Cox. That's what we're hearing. That's the word out of the camp, is that Cox is playing second ruck and Jackson's playing like an on-ball midfielder. Now, Jackson is an on-ball midfielder. Look out. Because that means he can get at least 15, 20 touches. He's capable of it. He can move forward for a goal. He could still jump into the ruck contest every now and then. He could tackle. He's a player you need to have regardless. Luke Jackson is probably the most athletic ruckman around. If there's any player that can handle this new change, it's Jackson. Let's put it that way. I think some of these big boys, if it vastly changes the way AFL's played, Gorn's going to be fucked. Grundy's going to be fucked. Cameron's going to be fucked. English is going to be fucked. They're all going to be fucked because they're not going to be able to get to the contest in a couple of seconds because they can't get around the ground quick enough. So we just got to see. I don't think Gorn's getting 127 points weekly. I really don't. But we'll see how we go. To fill out on the bench, we're going to go to Reedy, just at that price point for Carlton. Don't think Pitnet's going to play every single game. And obviously losing TDK, yeah, Reedy's probably the better option there. Now, moving into the forwards, this is where it gets interesting. I got Sheasel. If you've noticed through this entire side, I don't have many North Melbourne players. There's a reason for that. Because Alistair Clarkson is a melon, in my opinion. Absolute legend. 4 premierships. You're up there. You're up there, arguably the GOAT. But you're not that anymore. You've lost it, in my opinion. You've lost it. And where I've seen you lose it, you're playing Sheasel at half forward sometimes. So I don't have many North Melbourne players in my side because I can't trust it. I just can't trust the system. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. Apparently McKercher is playing midfield this year. So if you want to run McKercher off the half back, keep that in your brain. He might not be there. So he might not be getting those kickouts and those high touches. So I can't trust it. But Sheasel was so damn good. Again, he's a Bontempelli for me. He's 107 on the average last year. He's so much better than any other forward in the competition. Like the only other player I would have maybe liked to have had was Nick Martin, but the guy's not playing this year. So Sheasel, get Sheasel, you'll be fine. I don't think you're going to have a problem with that. Now look, you've got another options here. Petrarca, a lot of people have Petrarca. Sam Darcy, he's going to probably jump into the ruck work at the forward for the Doggies, and he's going to be scoring lots of goals, contested marks. Sam Darcy is a great shout. If you have him in your team, you're not going wrong. But in my opinion, I'm going Cozzy. Cozzy is going to be getting a lot more points than 91, I can guarantee it, because he's going to be playing midfield. He's going to be their best midfielder. So he's going to be getting a lot more football. Now, is he going to use it better? Is his efficiency going to be better? That remains to be seen. But as I was referring to before, with Oliver and Petrarca not being there for Langford, same applies to Pickett. I just think you've got to give it a chance. He scores lots of goals too. He'll bomb forward and score goals. You can have Petrarca, but I don't know if Petrarca's going to be that great. You know, there's a lot more players in the Gold Coast now. I know that does free spots up. Like maybe Petrarca's going to have a little bit more space because others are going to get more attention. But I'm willing to wait on Petrarca at 522,000. I think I could get him in further down the line. He does have. He's capable of a stinker. Let's put it that way. Rounding out the forward line, this is where I start to go down now because I have such a good midfield. You have to give up somewhere. It's my forward line. Adam Treloar, this is an absolute. Treloar is going to be such a pod if he stays fit. If he stays fit, this is the problem because he's so prone to injuries. But man, at 311,000, if that guy comes back anywhere near to the capability that he can be, and he stays fit and healthy, doesn't get injured, you'd be foolish not to have him at 311,000 in your forward line. I don't even know why he's a forward mid. The guy doesn't play forward, but whatever. But he's easily capable of getting 20 touches a game, 20, 25 touches if he's fit. That's the question mark. And like I said to you, we need to see some prackies. This team may change, probably will change. But as a starting base, if all goes well, if we're looking at this team and they're all fit, this is going to serve you a pretty well going into opening round. This one is contentious. This next one's very contentious. But I just can't see any downside, and it's Ugle-Hagan. Now, Ugle-Hagan hasn't kicked a footy in a year. I get it, but 214,000. He's with Dimmer, and he's at the Gold Coast. Now, all the best defenders are going to go to King. There's going to be a lot of attention on King. He's going to have the second best defender, maybe even the third best, depending on what team he's playing against. If he comes back anything like what he was for the Bulldogs, you just got to have him in your side at 214,000. He'll kick goals for fun. He'll kick bags. But again, it's a massive question mark because he's down a fucking Gold Coast in the Surfers Paradise, man. If he gets in the wrong crowd, which he's very capable of doing, he'll be out partying most of the time. So it is a massive gamble having Ugle-Hagan. But again, we'll see the prackies. We'll see the round one. He might not even fucking play a prackie. Like, who knows? But at this stage, right now, opening round, again, if all goes well, I think Ugle-Hagan is a steal. The other Pickett at 154,000. I mean, look, Latrell Pickett. The name just picks itself. If you're a Pickett, you've got some skill, and I think if Cozzy's going into the midfield, it's probably going to free up a spot for another small forward, and it could be Latrell. So, and again, at 154,000, you're not doing yourself any disservice there. Marshall. Now, there is word that Marshall is going to be playing halfback for Port, or a fullback, or he's going to be taking. He's going to be in the kickouts. He's going to be doing something in the defensive line. If he does that, he's going to be getting a lot of ball, which means he's probably going to be getting some points. And 147,000, I think, is good. He didn't play at all last year. If he goes back into the forward line, even at 147,000, he's going to be getting some points because Georgiades gets a lot of attention. Marshall's going to be getting that second defender. He's still a good forward. He's still a decent forward. And at 147,000, you're mad not to have him because, again, that's cheap as chips, but the injury cloud is a concern. To round out the bench, I'm going Dersma. Again, number one pick, but it's North Melbourne. I don't like it. It makes me a little nervous. And then the final player for the bench, or for the forwards, is Philippou. The guy is a walking injury cloud. Now, a lot of these players do have injury clouds over them, but again, we're talking from an ideal world here, an ideal situation. These players, they make it. And then my final player, I can't even pronounce his last name. Is it Gridge? How do I spell it? I don't even know how to spell it. Grilge? Why isn't he coming up? Oh, that's because he's not the forward. I gotta go flex, that's right. Flex. Samuel. Yeah, he's going into my flex. Actually, I'll probably sub him into the defense. Gibcus could go on the flex. Maybe Dersma might go on the flex. But anyway, we'll see it. That's my team rounded out. That is it. That's what it looks like, right? And again, I think that we'll save that team. I think that as a start, this is a very, very strong team. You've got great midfielders here. They're not got these. I don't think these six here, 1, 2, are going to let you down. They're not going to let you down. I don't think. You've got 3 primos at the back with potential of Coleman, Monas Wakefield. The potential there for growth is very high. And then your forwards, you've got the best forward in Sheasel. You've got Pickett, who's playing midfield. Trelaw potentially can get some points back in the midfield for the Doggies if he's fit. Ugle-Hagan. It's a very solid team. And then you've got your growers on the side here. Brody, Sharp, McRae, probably going to play minutes. Sarong, Lindsay, they're probably going to play minutes. All those players on the side here are playing. They will play. So you're going to get some growth there. That is what's going to fund you your bigger targets. And Jagger Smith coming, even Langford, they're going to, and even Young, these guys can push money. So in an ideal situation, this money there can fund you a bigger ruckman. If you want to keep Bontempelli, Butters, that's how you're going to work it. And these players down here are going to probably fund you bigger defense. Some players in the defense here. So that's what we're going with right now. Again, the biggest cloud here is Brian in the middle. If the rules completely change the fabric of the game, I'm going to go with this because I think that Jackson, it allows me to have better midfield and a better defense. But this team can change if the ruck battles don't change at all and these ruckmen are still getting high touches, high clearances, high tackles and everything like that. We'll take Brian out, we'll put Sherry in, and we'll move Bont and probably Wangani Miller, and we'll just have to find a way to get Bont in the future. But that about wraps it up for me. That is my team 2026. What do you think? Let me know. Look, it's contentious, I know, but I think this is a good start. That midfield is very, very strong. But we'll see how we go. We'll watch a few prackies. We'll probably make another recap video as we go along just before the season because we'll have a better understanding. But yeah, guys, that's about it for this one. We'll probably make a couple more videos going into the season. Big Collingwood fan. I'll probably do some Collingwood related videos and stuff like that on where we're at and what I think we can do for the season. But yeah, if you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and yeah, see you guys on the next one. Peace out.